R11 R19LT07.UXD5 the 19th of May 05 7:33 p.m. Page R11 Literary terms. Alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sounds. Writers use alliteration to draw attention to certain words or ideas, to imitate sounds, and to create musical effects. Allusion. An allusion is a reference to a well-known person, event, place, literary work, or work of art. Allusions allow the writer to express complex ideas without spelling them out. Understanding what a literary work is saying often depends on recognizing its allusions and the meanings they suggest. Analogy. An analogy makes a comparison between two or more things that are similar in some ways but otherwise unlike. Anecdote. An anecdote is a brief story about an interesting, amusing, or strange event. Writers tell anecdotes to entertain or to make a point. Antagonist. An antagonist is a character or a force in conflict with the main character or protagonist. Author. Argument. An author's argument is the position he or she puts forward, supported by reasons. See conflict and protagonist. Atmosphere. Atmosphere, or mood, is the feeling created in the reader by a literary work or passage. Author's purpose. An author's purpose is his or her main reason for writing. For example, an author may want to entertain, inform, or persuade the reader. Sometimes an author is trying to teach a moral lesson or reflect on an experience. An author may have more than one purpose for writing. Autobiography. An autobiography is the story of the writer's own life, told by the writer. Autobiographical writing may tell about the person's whole life or only a part of it. Because autobiographies are about real people and events, they are a form of non-fiction. Most autobiographies are written in the first person. See biography, non-fiction, and point of view. Biography. A biography is a form of non-fiction, in which a writer tells the life story of another person. Most biographies are written about famous or admirable people. Although biographies are non-fiction, the most effective ones share the qualities of good narrative writing. See autobiography and non-fiction. Character. A character is a person or an animal that takes part in the action of literary work. The main, or major, character is the most important character in a story, poem, or play. A minor character is one who takes part in the action but is not the focus of attention. Characters are sometimes classified as flat or round. A flat character is one-sided and often stereotypical. A round character, on the other hand, is fully developed and exhibits many traits, often both faults and virtues. Characters can also be classified as dynamic or static. A dynamic character is one who changes or grows during the course of the work. A static character is one who does not change. See characterization, hero/heroine, and motive. Characterization. Characterization is the act of creating and developing a character. Authors use two major methods of characterization: direct and indirect. When using direct characterization, a writer states the character's traits, or characteristics. When describing a character indirectly, a writer depends on the reader to draw conclusions about the character's traits. Sometimes the writer tells what other participants in the story say and think about the character. See character and motive. Climax. The climax, also called the turning point, is the high point in the action of the plot. It is the moment of greatest tension, when the outcome of the plot hangs in the balance. See plot. Comedy. A comedy is a literary work, especially a play, which is light, often humorous or satirical, and ends happily. Comedies frequently depict ordinary characters faced with temporary difficulties and conflicts. Types of comedy include romantic comedy, which involves problems between lovers. Literary terms handbook. R11 R19LT07.UXD5 the 19th of May 05 7:33 p.m. Page R12 and the comedy of manners, which satirically challenges social customs of a society. Concrete poem. A concrete poem is one with a shape that suggests its subject. The poet arranges the letters, punctuation, and lines to create an image, or picture, on the page. Conflict. A conflict is a struggle between opposing forces. Conflict is one of the most important elements of stories, novels, and plays because it causes the action. There are two kinds of conflict, external and internal. An external conflict is one in which a character struggles against some outside force, such as another person. Another kind of external conflict may occur between a character and some force in nature. An internal conflict takes place within the mind of a character. The character struggles to make a decision, take an action, or overcome a feeling. See plot. Connotations. The connotation of a word is the set of ideas associated with it in addition to its explicit meaning. The connotation of a word can be personal, based on individual experiences. More often, cultural connotations, those recognizable by most people in a group, determine a writer's word choices. See also denotation. Couplet. A couplet is two consecutive lines of verse with end rhymes. Often, a couplet functions as a stanza. Cultural context. The cultural context of a literary work is the economic, social, and historical environment of the characters. This includes the attitudes and customs of that culture and historical period. Denotation. The denotation of a word is its dictionary meaning, independent of other associations that the word may have. The denotation of the word lake, for example, is an inland body of water, vacation spot, and place where the fishing is good, are connotations of the word lake. See also connotation. Description. A description is a portrait, in words, of a person, place, or object. Descriptive. R12. Literary Terms Handbook, Grade 7. Writing uses images that appeal to the five senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. See image. Development. See plot. Dialect. Dialect is the form of a language spoken by people in a particular region or group. Dialects differ in pronunciation, grammar, and word choice. The English language is divided into many dialects. British English differs from American English. Dialogue. A dialogue is a conversation between characters. In poems, novels, and short stories, dialogue is usually set off by quotation marks to indicate a speaker's exact words. In a play, dialogue follows the names of the characters, and no quotation marks are used. Diction. Diction is a writer's word choice and the way the writer puts those words together. Diction is part of a writer's style and may be described as formal or informal, plain or fancy, ordinary or technical, sophisticated or down-to-earth, old-fashioned, or modern. Drama. Drama is a story written to be performed by actors. Although a drama is meant to be performed, one can also read the script, or written version, and imagine the action. The script of a drama is made up of dialogue and stage directions. The dialogue is the words spoken by the actors. The stage directions, usually printed in italics, tell how the actors should look, move, and speak. They also describe the setting, sound effects, and lighting. Dramas are often divided into parts called acts. The acts are often divided into smaller parts called scenes. Dynamic character. See character. Essay. An essay is a short non-fiction work about a particular subject. Most essays have a single major focus and a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. There are many types of essays. An informal essay uses casual, conversational language. A historical essay gives facts, explanations, and insights about historical events. An expository essay explains an idea by breaking it down. A narrative essay tells a story about a real-life experience. An informational. R11, R19 LT07.QXD5. The 19th of May 05. 7:33 p.m. Page R13. Essay explains a process. A persuasive essay. Offers an opinion and supports it. A humorous essay uses humor to achieve the author's purpose. A reflective essay addresses an event or experience and includes the writer's personal insights about the event's importance. See exposition, narration, and persuasion. Exposition. In the plot of a story or a drama, the exposition, or introduction, is the part of the work that introduces the characters, setting, and basic situation. See plot. Expository writing. Expository writing is writing that explains or informs. Extended metaphor. An unextended Metaphor, as in a regular metaphor, a subject is spoken or written of as though it were something else. However, extended metaphor differs from regular metaphor in that several connected comparisons are made. See metaphor. External conflict. See conflict. Fable. A fable is a brief story or poem, usually with animal characters, that teaches a lesson or moral. The moral is usually stated at the end of the fable. See irony and moral. Fantasy. A fantasy is highly imaginative writing that contains elements not found in real life. Examples of fantasy include stories that involve supernatural elements, stories that resemble fairy tales, stories that deal with imaginary places and creatures, and science fiction stories. See science fiction. Fiction. Fiction is prose writing that tells about imaginary characters and events. Short stories and novels are works of fiction. Some writers base their fiction on actual events and people, adding invented characters, dialogue, settings, and plots. Other writers rely on imagination alone. See narration, non-fiction, and prose. Figurative language. Figurative language is writing or speech that is not meant to be taken literally. The many types of figurative language are known as figures of speech. Common figures of speech include metaphor, personification, and simile. Writers use figurative language to state ideas in vivid and imaginative ways. See metaphor, personification, simile, and symbol. Figure of speech. See figurative language. Flashback. A flashback is a scene within a story that interrupts the sequence of events to relate events that occurred in the past. FLAT. Character. See character. FOIL. A foil is a character whose behavior and attitude contrast with those of the main character. Folktale. A folktale is a story composed orally and then passed from person to person by word of mouth. Folktales originated among people who could neither read nor write. These people entertain one another by telling stories aloud, often dealing with heroes, adventure, magic, or romance. Eventually, modern scholars collected these stories and wrote them down. Folktales reflect the cultural beliefs and environments from which they come. See fable, legend, myth, and oral tradition. FOOTC. Metre. Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is the author's use of clues to hint at what might happen later in the story. Writers use foreshadowing to build their readers' expectations and to create suspense. FREE. Verse. Free verse is poetry not written in a regular, rhythmical pattern, or meter. The poet is free to write lines of any length or with any number of stresses, or beats. Free verse is therefore less constraining than metrical verse, in which every line must have a certain length and a certain number of stresses. See meter. Genre. Genre is a division or type of literature. Literature is commonly divided into three major genres: poetry, prose, and drama. Each major genre is, in turn, divided into lesser genres, as follows. 1. Poetry, lyric poetry, concrete poetry, dramatic poetry, narrative poetry, epic poetry. Literary Terms Handbook. R13, R11, R19 LT07.QXD5. The 19th of May 05, 7:34 p.m. Page R14. 2. Prose, fiction, novels and short stories, and non-fiction. Biography, autobiography, letters, essays, and reports. 3. Drama, serious drama and tragedy, comic drama, melodrama, and farce. See drama, poetry, and prose. Haiku. The haiku is a 3-line Japanese verse form. The first and third lines of a haiku each have 5 syllables. The second line has 7 syllables. A writer of haiku uses images to create a single, vivid picture, generally of a scene from nature. Hero/heroine. A hero or heroine is a character whose actions are inspiring or noble. Often heroes and heroines struggle to overcome the obstacles and problems that stand in their way. Note that the term hero was originally used only for male characters, while heroic female characters were always called heroines. However, it is now acceptable to use hero to refer to females as well as to males. Historical context. The historical context of a literary work includes the actual political and social events and trends of the time. When a work takes place in the past, Knowledge about that historical time period can help the reader understand its setting, background, culture, and message, as well as the attitudes and actions of its characters. A reader must also take into account the historical context in which the writer was creating the work, which may be different from the time period of the work's setting. Humor is writing intended to evoke laughter. While most humorists try to entertain, humor can also be used to convey a serious theme. Idiom. An idiom is an expression that has a meaning particular to a language or region. For example, in 7th grade Komagiri Soto uses the idiom, making a face, which means to contort one's face in an unusual, usually unattractive, way. Images are words or phrases that appeal to one or more of the five senses. Writers use images to describe how their subjects look, sound, feel, taste, and smell. Poets often paint images, or word pictures, that appeal to your senses. These pictures help you to experience the poem fully. Imagery. See image. R14. Literary Terms Handbook Grade 7. Internal conflict. See conflict. Irony is a contradiction between what happens and what is expected. There are three main types of irony. Situational irony occurs when something happens that directly contradicts the expectations of the characters or the audience. Verbal irony is when something contradictory is said. In dramatic irony, the audience is aware of something that the character or speaker is not. Journal. A journal is a daily, or a periodic, account of events and the writer's thoughts and feelings about those events. Personal journals are not normally written for publication, but sometimes they do get published later with permission from the author or the author's family. Legend. A legend is a widely told story about the past, one that may or may not have a foundation in fact. Every culture has its own legends, its familiar, traditional stories. See folktale, myth, and oral tradition. Letters. A letter is a written communication from one person to another. In personal letters, the writer shares information and his or her thoughts and feelings with one other person or group. Although letters are not normally written for publication, they sometimes do get published later with the permission of the author or the author's family. Limerick. A limerick is a humorous, rhyming, 5-line poem with a specific metre and rhyme scheme. Most limericks have 3 strong stresses in lines 1, 2, and 5 and 2 strong stresses in lines 3 and 4. Most follow the rhyme scheme ABBA. Lyric poem. A lyric poem is a highly musical verse that expresses the observations and feelings of a single speaker. It creates a single, unified impression. MAIN. Character. See character. Media accounts. Media accounts are reports, explanations, opinions, or descriptions written for television, radio, newspapers, and magazines. While some media accounts report only facts, others include the writer's thoughts and reflections. Metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech in which something is described as though it were. R11, R19 LT07.QXD5, the 19th of May 05, 7:34 p.m. Page R15, something else. A metaphor, like a simile, works by pointing out a similarity between two unlike things. See extended metaphor and simile. Metre. The metre of a poem is its rhythmical pattern. This pattern is determined by the number of stresses, or beats, in each line. To describe the metre of a poem, read it emphasizing the beats in each line. Then, mark the stressed and unstressed syllables, as follows. My father was the first to hear. As you can see, each strong stress is marked with a slanted line, and each unstressed syllable with a horseshoe symbol. The weak and strong stresses are then divided by vertical lines into groups called feet. Minor characters. See character. MOODC. Atmosphere. Moral. A moral is a lesson taught by a literary work. A fable usually ends with a moral that is directly stated. A poem, novel, short story, or essay often suggests a moral that is not directly stated. The moral must be drawn by the reader, based on other elements in the work. See fable. Motivation. See motive. Motive. A motive is a reason that explains or partially explains the character's thoughts, feelings, actions, or speech. Writers try to make their characters' motives, or motivations, as clear as possible. If the motives of a main character are not clear, then the character will not be believable. characters are often motivated by needs, such as food and shelter. They are also motivated by feelings, such as fear, love, and pride. Motives may be obvious or hidden. A myth is a fictional tale that explains the actions of gods or heroes or the origins of elements of nature. Myths are part of the oral tradition. They are composed orally and then passed from generation to generation by word of mouth. Every ancient culture has its own mythology, or collection of myths. Greek and Roman myths are known collectively as classical mythology. See oral tradition. Narration is writing that tells a story. The act of telling a story is also called narration. Each piece is a narrative. A story told in fiction, non-fiction, poetry, or even in drama is called a narrative. See narrative poem, and narrator. A narrative is a story. A narrative can be either fiction or non-fiction. Novels and short stories are types of fictional narratives. Biographies and autobiographies are non-fiction narratives. Poems that tell stories are also narratives. See narration and narrative poem. A narrative poem is a story told in verse. Narrative poems often have all the elements of short stories, including characters, conflict, and plot. A narrator is a speaker or a character who tells a story. The narrator's perspective is the way he or she sees things. A third-person narrator is one who stands outside the action and speaks about it. A first-person narrator is one who tells the story and participates in its action. See point of view. Non-fiction is prose writing that presents and explains ideas or that tells about real people, places, objects, or events. Autobiographies, biographies, essays, reports, letters, memos, and newspaper articles are all types of non-fiction. See fiction. A novel is a long work of fiction. Novels contain such elements as characters, plot, conflict, and setting. The writer of novels, or novelist, develops these elements. In addition to its main plot, a novel may contain one or more subplots, or independent, related stories. A novel may also have several themes. See fiction and short story. Novella, a fiction work that is longer than a short story but shorter than a novel. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that imitate sounds. Crash, buzz, screech, hiss, neigh, jingle, and cluck are examples of onomatopoeia. Chickadee, towhee, and whippoorwill are onomatopoeic names of birds. Literary Terms Handbook. R15, R11, R19 LT07.QXD5. The 19th of May 05, 7:34 p.m. Page R16. Onomatopoeia can help put the reader in the activity of a poem. Oral tradition is the passing of songs, stories, and poems from generation to generation by word of mouth. Folk songs, folk tales, legends, and myths all come from the oral tradition. No one knows who first created these stories and poems. See folktale, legend, and myth. Oxymoron and oxymoron. PL. Oxymoron is a figure of speech that links two opposite or contradictory words to point out an idea or situation that seems contradictory or inconsistent but on closer inspection turns out to be somehow true. Personification is a type of figurative language in which a non-human subject is given human characteristics. Perspective, see narrator and point of view. Persuasion is used in writing or speech that attempts to convince the reader or listener to adopt a particular opinion or course of action. Newspaper editorials and letters to the editor use persuasion. So do advertisements and campaign speeches given by political candidates. See essay. Playwright. A playwright is a person who writes plays. William Shakespeare is regarded as the greatest playwright in English literature. Plot. Plot is the sequence of events in which each event results from a previous one and causes the next. In most novels, dramas, short stories, and narrative poems, the plot involves both characters and a central conflict. The plot usually begins with an exposition that introduces the setting, the characters, and the basic situation. This is followed by the inciting incident, which introduces the central conflict. The conflict then increases during the development until it reaches a high point of interest or suspense, the climax. The climax is followed by the falling action, or end, of the central conflict. Any events that occurred during the falling action make up the resolution, or denouement. R16. Literary Terms Handbook Grade 7. Some plots do not have all of these parts. Some stories begin with the inciting incident and end with the resolution. See conflict, climax, resolution, exposition, conflict, introduced. Poetry. Poetry is one of the three major types of literature, the others being prose and drama. Most poems make use of highly concise, musical, and emotionally charged language. Many also make use of imagery, figurative language, and special devices of sound such as rhyme. Major types of poetry include lyric poetry, narrative poetry, and concrete poetry. See concrete poem, genre, lyric poem, and narrative poem. Point of view. Point of view is the perspective, or vantage point, from which a story is told. It is either a narrator outside the story or a character in the story. First-person point of view is told by a character who uses the first-person pronoun I. The two kinds of third-person point of view, limited and omniscient, are called third-person because the narrator uses third-person pronouns such as he and she to refer to the characters. There is no I telling the story. In stories told from the omniscient third-person point of view, the narrator knows and tells about what each character feels and thinks. In stories told from the limited third-person point of view, the narrator relates the inner thoughts and feelings of only one character, and everything is viewed from this character's perspective. See narrator. Problem. See conflict. R11. R19 LT07.QXD5. The 19th of May 05. 7:34 p.m. Page R17. Prose. Prose is the ordinary form of written language. Most writing that is not poetry, drama, or song is considered prose. Prose is one of the major genres of literature and occurs in fiction and non-fiction. See fiction, genre, and non-fiction. Protagonist. The protagonist is the main character in a literary work. Often, the protagonist is a person, but sometimes it can be an animal. See antagonist and character. Refrain. A refrain is a regularly repeated line or group of lines in a poem or a song. Repetition. Repetition is the use, more than once, of any element of language, a sound, word, phrase, clause, or sentence. Repetition is used in both prose and poetry. See alliteration, metre, plot, rhyme, and rhyme scheme. Resolution. The resolution is the outcome of the conflict in a plot. See plot. Rhyme. Rhyme is the repetition of sounds at the ends of words. Poets use rhyme to lend a song-like quality to their verses and to emphasize certain words and ideas. Many traditional poems contain end rhymes, or rhyming words at the ends of lines. Another common device is the use of internal rhymes, or rhyming words within lines. Internal rhyme also emphasizes the flowing nature of a poem. See rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme. A rhyme scheme is a regular pattern of rhyming words in a poem. To indicate the rhyme scheme of a poem, one uses lowercase letters. Each rhyme is assigned a different letter, as follows in the first stanza of Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. The way a crow A shook down on me B. The dust of snow A from a hemlock tree B. Thus, the stanza has the rhyme scheme ABAB. Rhythm. Rhythm is the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in spoken or written language. See metre. Round character. See character. Scene. A scene is a section of uninterrupted action in the act of a drama. See drama. Science fiction. Science fiction combines elements of fiction and fantasy with scientific fact. Many science fiction stories are set in the future. Sensory language. Sensory language is writing or speech that appeals to one or more of the five senses. See image. Setting. The setting of a literary work is the time and place of the action. The setting includes all the details of a place and time, the year, the time of day, even the weather. The place may be a specific country, state, region, community, neighborhood, building, institution, or home. Details such as dialects, clothing, customs, and modes of transportation are often used to establish setting. In most stories, The setting serves as a backdrop, a context in which the characters interact. Setting can also help to create a feeling, or atmosphere. See atmosphere. Short story. A short story is a brief work of fiction. Like a novel, a short story presents a sequence of events, or plot. The plot usually deals with a central conflict faced by a main character, or protagonist. The events in a short story usually communicate a message about life or human nature. This message, or central idea, is the story's theme. See conflict, plot, and theme. Simile. A simile is a figure of speech that uses like or as to make a direct comparison between two. Unlike ideas, everyday speech often contains similes, such as pale as a ghost, good as gold, spread like wildfire, and clever as a fox. Sound devices. Sound devices are techniques used by writers to give musical effects to their writing. Some of these include onomatopoeia, alliteration, rhyme, metre, and repetition. Speaker. The speaker is the imaginary voice a poet uses when writing a poem. The speaker is the character who tells the poem. This character, or voice, often is not identified by name. There can be literary terms handbook. R17, R11, R19 LT07.QXD5. The 19th of May 05, 7:34 p.m. Page R18. Important differences between the poet and the poem's speaker. See narrator. Speech. A speech is a non-fiction work that is delivered orally to an audience. There are many kinds of speeches citing almost every kind of public gathering. Types of speeches include dramatic, persuasive, and informative. Stage directions. Stage directions are notes included in a drama to describe how the work is to be performed or staged. Stage directions are usually printed in italics and enclosed within parentheses or brackets. Some stage directions describe the movements, costumes, emotional states, and ways of speaking of the characters. Staging. Staging includes the setting, lighting, costumes, special effects, and music that go into a stage performance of a drama. See drama. Stanza. Stanza is a group of lines of poetry that are usually similar in length and pattern and are separated by spaces. A stanza is like a paragraph of poetry. It states and develops a single main idea. Static character. See character. Surprise ending. A surprise ending is a conclusion that is unexpected. The reader has certain expectations about the ending based on details in the story. Often, a surprise ending is foreshadowed, or subtly hinted at, in the course of the work. See foreshadowing and plot. Suspense. Suspense is a feeling of anxious uncertainty about the outcome of events in a literary work. Writers create suspense by raising questions in the minds of their readers. Symbol. A symbol is anything that stands for or represents something else. Symbols are common in everyday life. A dove with an olive branch in its beak is a symbol of peace. A blindfolded woman holding a balanced scale is a symbol of justice. A crown is a symbol of a king's status and authority. Symbolism. Symbolism is the use of symbols. Symbolism plays an important role in many different types of literature. It can highlight certain elements the author wishes to emphasize and also add levels of meaning. R18. Literary Terms Handbook Grade 7. Theme. The theme is a central message, concern, or purpose in a literary work. A theme can usually be expressed as a generalization, or a general statement, about human beings or about life. The theme of a work is not a summary of its plot. The theme is the writer's central idea. Although a theme may be stated directly in the text, it is more often presented indirectly. When the theme is stated indirectly, or implied, the reader must figure out what the theme is by looking at what the work reveals about people or life. Tone. The tone of a literary work is the writer's attitude toward his or her audience and subject. The tone can often be described by a single adjective, such as formal or informal, serious or playful, bitter or ironic. Factors that contribute to the tone are word choice, sentence structure, line length, rhyme, rhythm, and repetition. Tragedy. A tragedy is a work of literature, especially a play, that results in a catastrophe for the main character. In ancient Greek drama, the main character is always a significant person, a king or a hero, and because of the tragedy is a tragic flaw, or weakness, in his or her character. In modern drama, The main character can be an ordinary person, and the cause of the tragedy can be some evil in society itself. The purpose of tragedy is not only to arouse fear in pitying the audience, but also, in some cases, to convey a sense of the grandeur and nobility of the human spirit. Turning points. See Climax. Universal theme. A universal theme is a message about life that is expressed regularly in many different cultures and time periods. Folktales, epics, and romances often address universal themes like the importance of courage, the power of love, or the danger of greed. WORD choice. See Diction. R11, R19 LT07.QXT. The 24th of May 05, 11:44 AM. Page R19. Tips for discussing literature. As you read and study literature, discussions with other readers can help you understand and enjoy what you have read. Use the following tips. Understand the purpose of your discussion. Your purpose when you discuss literature is to broaden your understanding of a work by testing your own ideas and hearing the ideas of others. Keep your comments focused on the literature you are discussing. Starting with one focused question will help to keep your discussion on track. Communicate effectively. Effective communication requires thinking before speaking. Plan the points that you want to make and decide how you will express them. Organize these points in logical order and use details from the work to support your ideas. Jot down informal notes to help keep your ideas focused. Remember to speak clearly, pronouncing words slowly and carefully. Also, listen attentively when others are speaking, and avoid interrupting. Consider other ideas and interpretations. A work of literature can generate a wide variety of responses in different readers. Be open to the idea that many interpretations can be valid. To support your own ideas, point to the events, descriptions, characters, or other literary elements in the work that led to your interpretation. To consider someone else's ideas, decide whether details in the work support the interpretation he or she presents. Be sure to convey your criticism of the ideas of others in a respectful and supportive manner. Ask questions. Ask questions to clarify your understanding of another reader's ideas. You can also use questions to call attention to possible areas of confusion, to points that are open to debate, or to errors in the speaker's points. To move a discussion forward, summarize and evaluate conclusions reached by the group members. When you meet with a group to discuss literature, use a chart like the one shown to analyze the discussion. Work being discussed. Focus question. Your response. Another student's response. Supporting evidence. Supporting evidence. Literary Terms Handbook. R19.